Hi, Krishna. Barry's also he's a member of the commission. He's the co-chair.
Okay.
He's on his way. So.
Better late than never.
He'll join soon, yes.
If there can be a thing called Jewish Standard Time, there's no reason why we can't have Human Rights Standard Time.
Here we go.
Who's that? Barry. All right, so I think we're going to have to assume that Brian's missed many of the meetings. It could take minutes for us. Anybody? If not, I can try to do it while running the meeting.
Brian did email just like 2 minutes ago saying he was not going to be able to make it because of childcare issue.
Okay, so then we definitely do need someone to take minutes.
When the meeting starts live, I'm going to mute everyone that is not speaking.
Okay, how are you going to know when we want to speak?
You can mute and unmute yourself.
We can
You
unmute
have to remain, if you are not speaking, you need to remain muted. That's very important.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 minutes while I'm running the meeting. Wish me luck. All right, I think we are ready to start. So let me know when you want me to read the document.
You may start, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Human Rights Commission. My name is Sarah Raskin. I'm co-chair of the West Hartford Human Rights Commission, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the virtual July 23rd meeting of the Commission. Because in-person attendance at public meetings is likely to increase the risk of transmission of COVID-19, this meeting is being conducted in accordance with Governor Lamont's Executive Order Number 7B, which permits municipalities to conduct public meetings virtually. Commission members and some town staff are participating by WebEx. Members of the public can access this meeting by calling 1-408-418-9388 and use access code 132-742-6571. The public can also watch on Comcast Channel 5 or Frontier Channel 6098 or on www.whctv.org. Because of the virtual format, there are some special rules and procedures I need to cover before we begin. First, I ask all participants to mute your devices when you are not speaking. If you wish to be recognized, please raise your hand and you will be called on. If you are participating via audio only, or I do not call on you and the debate is ending, you may unmute your phone and let me know so that I can recognize you. Second, pursuant to Executive Order 7B, all speakers must state their name and title each time they speak. Because of the difficulty in tallying voice votes on a video conference, I will require the votes to be taken by roll. Fourth, when it is time for the public comment portion of the meeting, I will turn the meeting over to the moderator. The moderator will announce the first 3 digits of a phone number, and the person who called with that number may unmute his or her phone or their phone and restate their name, provide their address, and deliver comments or questions. The moderator will proceed in this manner until all members of the public who have called in have had an opportunity to speak. The moderator will then turn the meeting back to me and I will continue with the remaining agenda items. We will repeat this process until we have unmuted every phone. It is very important that you say your name each time you are prompted by the moderator. If the moderator unmutes a phone and does not hear a voice after the prompt, that phone line will be removed from the conference. I will now call the roll, and you must each respond here or present to your name. Barry Walters.
Here.
Dawn Ennis.
I am here.
Krishna Adhikari.
I'm here.
Adrian Billings Smith.
Here.
And then our liaison, Pramod Pradhan.
Here.
And Brian Greenleaf is the other member, and he is not present. I'd also just like to remind my fellow commissioners that this is an unusual meeting for us, and to remind you that it is being videotaped, and that the videotape will be on YouTube forever. So to be aware that whatever you say or that we discuss will be available to the public, and the same is true of the information in the chat. All right. So I think that everybody has the agenda for tonight's meeting. I'm not going to bother to share it. We really just have one agenda item. That is for us as the West Hartford Human Rights Commission to consider ways in which we would like to make recommendations to the town in order to increase as much as possible racial justice in West Hartford. So I created a working draft, which is really just a bullet point list of ideas. And I know that Adrian had a chance to work on it a little bit. I don't know if other people did. But first, let me ask the other commissioners, does it make sense to speak more broadly at first, or does it make sense to go through each individual bullet point? Tell me how you believe it would be most productive to proceed.
I like the 30,000-foot view first.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. And
Yes?
your members, my name is Gina Verano. I'm a Deputy Corporation Counsel with the Town of West Hartford. I haven't met you before. Good evening. I'm here just as a reminder that there are certain procedures that need to be in place when we are conducting a virtual meeting, and the chair has already indicated those. And I'm interjecting myself now because every time you respond and speak, you need to put your name first, because for those who do not have video capabilities, they're simply listening to this meeting. And so they won't be able to identify a name of the person. But every time you speak and you press unmute, the first thing is an introduction with your name. Thank you.
I stand corrected. My name is Dawn Ennis, and I am in favor of presenting a wider view. I call it the 30,000-foot view before we conclude.
Okay, this is Sarah Raskin. And I guess to just start off the conversation at 30,000 feet, I've sort of organized the document according to recommendations for police reform, recommendations for police reporting, recommendations in the schools, and then recommendations in the town like affordable housing. So does that help to sort of ground us a little bit? And let me know what people think about sort of those categories.
I support to go to this category. My name is Krishna Adhikari Ajaswaga.
This is Sarah Raskin again. Would it be helpful if I share the document on everybody's screens? I'm seeing heads nodding.
Hi, this is Adrienne Billings-Smith. Sarah, if you'd like to show the document on every screen, that would probably help everyone get an overview of what you are speaking about. And also, I agree to have a general overview. And if you'd like to start with that general overview of some of the things that you've written down, then we can all begin to add our particular ideas of what reform would look like, if that's okay with everyone.
Madam Chair, this is Gina Verano, Deputy Corporate Counsel again. Just want to remind you that the screen is public and posted right now. And just to be careful, there I see screens behind that, and that should you inadvertently close one of those screens, that everything else on the screens behind it will also be public in perpetuity. So just a reminder that the screen in front of you, police reforms and A through whatever you have there, is public and on the screen and being recorded. Thank you. Oh.
Okay, are people comfortable with having this document be public at this point? Or would you rather have me work on it and only share it when we're ready for the public to see it?
This is Don Ennis. I'd just like to note that, as Gina has reminded us, there are people who are listening. So if we do share any documents, we probably have to read them out loud.
This is Sarah Raskin. That's an excellent point. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. I think that you probably have a copy of it that I emailed you. And so I'm going to just read through it. So the first section is police reforms, as I mentioned, starting with 8 Can't Wait, which some of you might already be familiar with. As I said, the second is reports that the police could be making to the public. Then the schools, and then school reporting, housing, regionalization, and healthcare. I also want to remind people that I at least have a hard stop at 6 o'clock. And so it may be that we're not able to get through all of this. So maybe my question is, do people feel an urgency about one particular section of recommendations? And I also want to say that many of my recommendations are information that I don't have. And I'll just remind the commission that we've been trying for over a year to meet with the chief of police to ask some questions. Going way back, he's never responded to our requests to meet. He might be more willing to do that in the current climate, I'm not sure. But some of the items in this document really require more information from either the town manager or the chief of police before we can make a concrete recommendation. So I guess my question for the commission right now is there one area that we would like to focus on first?
Hi, this is Adrienne Billings-Smith. I would, if looking at your document, the largest one would be police reforms, and I would think that would probably be the most important at this point and the hot topic at this point. Others can be done as we talk about school. When we talk about schooling and other meetings, we might be able to implement some of these things that are already in this document. And the other police reporting and restructuring, if they're gotten to, we can kind of add those if you'd like to. But I think definitely police reform, that's the hot button issue that's going on in our town and in our nation. I think we should address that for the public if we can.
Hi, this is Co-Chair Barry Walters, and I agree with Adrian's assessment. Police reforms would probably be a good place to start. I do not believe that we will be able to tackle this in one meeting, regardless of whether it was a special meeting or not, because it is an extensive list, which is needed, but it is a multi-meeting task.
Hi, my name is Krishna Adhikari, member. There are several points, and whether we can go through all those points in this 1 hour meeting or not, I would suggest to prioritize them, start from the police reform, then we'll go to the most important point first and then proceed the second.
Dawn, are you comfortable with that? This is Sarah Raskin.
This is Don Ennis. I agree with everyone, and I want to also just take a second to welcome Adrienne.
This is Sarah Raskin.
Thank you.
Yes, Adrienne, we're very, very pleased to have you join us. Okay, so the first section here under police reforms comes mostly from the 8 Can't Wait information. I think the first one I have here is the most important in terms of West Hartford. So for those of you, many of you probably already know this, we don't have a civilian review board. We actually have a review board that's made up of police officers. And so the town manager and the chief yesterday mentioned on the Facebook Live that they do plan to look at this and look at other models. I think this is a moment for us to really forcefully discuss what we think an appropriate model would be, and a civilian review board that has teeth, that has the ability to take action.
Hi, this is Barry Walters, co-chair. Looking at the and what I remember of the chiefs and town manager conversation regarding review, 12 models from major cities, I would like to propose that the Human Rights Commission ask to be part of that review, and that that we be included in with it as far as what we would like to see as recommendations in those models, whatever models that they are examining. I do not know the 12 cities, and I think that it would be something that would behoove us to know.
Hi, Adrienne Billings here. To piggyback off of Barry, I didn't get a chance to write down all the 12 cities when I listened to that conversation. I have a couple that we can go look up if we so choose to, if we would like to be a part of that. And I agree, I think that the Human Rights Commission should be a part of implementing this review board also, considering that is our mission, is to make sure that our citizens are protected, all of our citizens of color, as well as marginalized citizens. So I agree with Barry. So some of the places that I have on my list are Evanston, Cambridge, Chapel Hill, Michigan, Pittsburgh, Portland, Los Angeles, and Fairfax, Virginia. I didn't get every single one of them. I know that in that meeting, he said that in the review board that they have now, there are 9 members, and 6 out of 9 of them are police officers. He also reiterated that it is top heavy and that he would like to change that. I think that we need to recommend that it is heavy with the community aspect and make sure that we are the majority, or the community, the citizens are the majority, when it comes to the Citizens Review Board. If they would like to have some sort of law enforcement officers, retired or current, on that board, I still think they need to be in the minority, and used, specifically as individuals who are obviously specialized in law enforcement.
This is Don Ennis. I want to concur with Adrienne. As the daughter of a police officer, I have great respect for our police, but I think that given current events, which are happening just a few miles away from our border in Hartford and Bloomfield, that we need to be very vigilant, and it is time to be holding authority accountable. So I support what Adrienne said.
Just a reminder, we just had an incident in West Hartford, although it was Hartford police crossing into West Hartford to harass some young men. So part of what I'm seeing from Adrienne's excellent notes, I'm really grateful to you for what you've added. Oh, sorry, this is Sarah Raskin, for what you've added to the document. It seems to me that we're really in need at this moment of a meeting with the chief of police before we can really move forward. If folks agree with me, then what we can do is craft this document into a list of questions and then ask for a meeting with the chief about those questions. At least that's what I see when I look at the first 3 or 4 points on this document. So up to maybe point F are really questions for the chief. Do people feel comfortable with that?
This is Don Ennis. I completely second that motion.
This is Adrienne Billings. Yes, I think that would be a great idea.
This is Krishna Adhikari again. And my point is, I agree with Sarah, and I like some of the points in the police reform number A points. This is the most important is the police training part, and this is the human behavior and the concept, that's their thinkings. So this should include the training and a refresher training towards the police behaving to different kinds of people, different color of people, and that training part should also incorporate to the review, yearly review, police review system. If they include this type of the reviewing system and a training and a behavioral training, basically behavioral training, that would help the police to treat the people equally. So I would like to add this point in the agenda.
Thank you, Krishna. This is Sarah Raskin. Yes. So I have on here training in cultural humility and trauma-informed care and de-escalation. And I believe that the chief yesterday on the Facebook live stream, but I'll have to go back and watch it to ensure that I'm correct. I believe that he said they get a 1-hour training every 3 years or something of that nature. So I think that we could, and he seemed open at the time to admitting that that was probably not enough. So I'm not sure my numbers are accurate, but whatever it was, I think I'll find out for sure. But I think we can certainly ask for a greater amount of time and more frequency of time than that.
Hi, Barry Walters, co-chair. I do feel that we need to speak with Chief Riddick as well as probably Town Manager Hart in presenting a number of these topics. Whether they're questions or whether they're statements as they are presented, I do believe that that is probably our first step. We probably want to go through this and craft it so that it is in a presentation mode, so to speak. and then it's just a matter of making that request. I will volunteer to reach out to the two of them in a single email to make that request. And let's see, August is an off month for us again, so it would require a second special meeting for us all to be part of.
This is Sarah Raskin. Thank you, Barry, for doing that. Could you copy us all? I'm just anxious because you've tried several times, I've tried several times, and we've been met with silence from the chief. And so I think the more of us kind of making the point that we really want to meet with him, the better.
This is Dawn. Can I interject? When I saw him at a town council meeting and addressed this directly, he said he was willing to meet. And Adrian can correct me on this, but last night he seemed to be indicating he was meeting with certain groups. So I think we should push that.
This is Sarah Raskin. Thanks, Dawn. So maybe what I can ask of everybody before we move forward is to look over this document and tell me if there's anything you do not agree with. So is there anything on here that you would not like us to bring forward to the chief, and I can delete it?
Hi, Adrian Billings Smith. There's not necessarily anything that I think should be deleted. A lot of these questions can be, I would suggest that we would go through and follow up later on that question, only because a lot of these questions or bullet points can be answered within their professional reference directory. And once we get to that, then we can start asking specific questions that deal the language and verbiage within the PRD. And that's where we want to take it, because he will just go back and answer questions specifically and give you, and he'll cite things out of the PRD as he should, because that's his policy, and his lawyers would probably be telling him to do that for his safety. But you want to go and find specific verbiage that you would like to point out to either question or have changed. And I think we should take a moment and not go through this right here in this moment and try to edit or delete anything, because I think everything's relevant within this. It's just, what verbiage do you want him to clarify or explain in this moment, I think would be a better way to put it, just my personal opinion.
This is Sarah Raskin. I agree with you. That's a great suggestion. And I will say that he did mention on the Facebook Live that they're putting all their policies and manuals and everything up on their website. They're slowly doing that. And so I think one of the points that Adrian raised that we should maybe think about is the question of reporting. So if these things are in their PRD, is there a way to find out, are they following it? How often did they not follow it? What happened when an issue came up? So he was very proud of a couple of instances last night that he discussed that people said, well, what was the follow-up? What happened to the person? So I think, and just in general in reporting, he admitted, very freely, he wasn't defensive, that they are pretty lax with that. So I think that's a place that if it exists already in the PRD, that we can be saying, well, how do we get data on it?
Barry Walters, co-chair. Sarah, I want to confirm that when we are looking at this as a list, are we referring to A through F, or are we referring to all points underneath police reform? The reason I ask is because a few of these actually might be addressed in the state legislature under special session. So there may be a need to address it, but it may be in a different way in a very short matter of time.
This is Sarah Raskin. Yeah, some of these things I got from the proposed state legislation and wrote them down just as a way to say, yes, we care about this in West Hartford. So I leave that up to the other commissioners, whether whether we want to keep everything in here, whether we want to only look at things that aren't in the state legislative, proposed legislation.
Hi, Barry Walters, co-chair. I think that I think given that it's not that easy just to throw a meeting together, that we actually keep those items in there, but be prepared to address them in a different manner or withdraw them in the future. Just because, just qualified immunity, that alone is something that may change. So I don't want us necessarily to put a lot of time into factors that it may not be required for us to do so. Give us more time to address other things.
Krishna Adhikari, member. I agree with Barry. Since we have developed so many points and the recommendation or some of the points are very important and we are not missing anything. So we want to go through all the points mentioned in the report.
And Adrian Billingsmith. And with these police reforms and with the 8 Can't Wait theme, I really think that campaign, I should say, when we're speaking of these, we are speaking for all citizens of West Hartford, but we need to make sure that we're really speaking for marginalized citizens of West Hartford, and in particular, the BIPOC citizens of West Hartford when we're dealing with these things, and really making sure they're at the forefront of why we're asking for these reforms. Because that's what I believe that this was, generally put together, and to make sure that with these recommendations or these demands or statements or however we want to place them in an email or within our meeting, that they know that this is coming so that we're protecting the bodies of Black and Brown people. So I just really think that when we're looking at this, we have to look at it from that point of view and really get deep down into the verbiage, because things that are written are usually written with bias. So we have to recognize these are written and they have loopholes, all this reference directly through their policy and procedures. They are written through the eyes of biased eyes. So we have to really tune in on that of what we want to do for our BIPOC citizens of West Hartford and how we're going to protect them.
This is Sarah Raskin. Thank you for pointing that out. That's really important. And obviously that was the motivation in the first place. And I think if we do make the document, if and when we do make the document public, we need to have some kind of preamble that really highlights that truth.
This Barry Walters, co-chair. So at this point, I would like to have us formulate next steps in a more formal basis, because we've tossed around, a few things here. But I like bullet points. So I just want to kind of give ourselves a list, a to-do list, a task list here. From what it sounds like, we are going to address this police reforms list, in particularly A through F for Chief Riddick and Town Manager Hart. Ask for a meeting with them as well. I also have heard that we will be asking if we can be a part of the review process in building a new review board, a civilian citizens review board. And also composing a document that is more formal in context, and which will include a preamble to explain and really specify what our intent is here. Did I miss anything? Okay. I see heads shaking no, so I'll go with that. So next step. I volunteered to contact Chief Riddick and Matt Hart and CC the commission. What other pieces and parts can we take on as individuals and as a team?
This is Sarah Raskin. Barry, if you want help drafting the email to them, let us know, and maybe we can all wordsmith it a little bit. And I would also like to add that that I do want to also bring up when we meet with them the question of reporting, and that these should be annual public reports. Do we want to talk about the schools or housing or healthcare with the time that we have remaining, or is there more that you think we need to cover in terms of police accountability?
This is Don Ennis, and if we can address schools, I'd like to. I also need to depart just for 30 seconds while my kid is screaming my name, so I'll be right back.
Hi, Adrian Billings Smith. I agree with Dawn. If we have the time, yes, I'd like to also address schools.
This is Sarah Raskin. Go ahead, Adrian.
So I see in our bullet points that you provided, bullet point 1, the removal of school resource officers. I'd like to go into that. Our chief believes that they should be there. We have momentum at this point that school resource officers or armed officers are, we have the momentum when I say that people don't want them in schools any longer. They feel like it's a traumatic experience, not only just for non-Black children or non-Black students, but for students of color, because of the tension right now in our nation. I don't necessarily know how to go about removing them, but we should really be emphasizing mental health therapists, social workers, other individuals who can take these places. If you still would like security within your school, they would have to be, we'd have to discuss making sure they're unarmed and they would not be dealing with any type of disciplinary action that the administration or administrators could deal with, and the guidance counselors or mental health therapists or so forth can deal with, because when they become a point of contention, when they start to use their authority and force within our schools, it hinders our children's mental health and it hinders their ability to engage and be in a safe space. And that's what school is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a safe space for our children. And if children of color who are disciplined at a higher rate already within just from their teachers and administrators are also being disciplined by armed police officers, then other children won't be able to speak out. They won't feel safe, and it'll show within their grades and other aspects of their life.
This is Sarah Raskin. I agree with you completely. I don't think there's any reason to have armed officers in our schools. I think they intimidate the students. I think they see that as their purpose, to harass and intimidate. And in fact, in the Facebook Live last night with Chief Riddick, I asked the question, why do we have, what's the purpose of school resource officers? And is there any data to show that they're helpful or effective in any way? He said, no, we don't keep data. We should. And then basically said that what they're good at is being snitches, that they're good at getting intel, as he put it, and finding out who's going to get in trouble. And he saw that as a preventative measure. I see that as traumatizing and harassment. And so, you know, from my little N of 2 of my children, I will say that they never had a positive experience with a school resource officer. My daughter's girlfriend all through high school was frequently harassed. So, so I do see that.
This is Don Ennis. Can I answer? I 100% support what Adrian said about how children who are Black and brown are abused and mistreated and judged more harshly and disciplined more harshly and have a harder time. I also support that school resource officers often overstate their role. But 8 years ago, I was standing in front of a firehouse in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, as mothers of first graders came out and learned that their children had been shot to death. And I will never forget the looks in their eyes. And 8 years ago, there was a tremendous push to make sure we had armed officers in our schools. Was that the right move? I don't know. Was it the wrong move? After all the other incidents since Sandy Hook, I can only say that I'm grateful there hasn't been an incident like that in our town. But I'm not in favor of stripping officers of their weapons. I just wish we could manage the school resource officers better so that they are there as break glass in case of emergency rather than engaging in the videos we've seen all over the internet of officers abusing children. That's, you know, it comes down to this. I want my kids safe. I want your kids safe. And I don't want them to be victims of either strangers or the officers. So I'm just hesitant to remove their only defense against madmen. Thank you.
This is Sarah Raskin. Dawn, I'm so glad that you raised that because I do believe that's the argument for having them in the schools and one of the reasons that we added more to our schools. I just want to say that the data that I've seen, and I'm happy to do more research. In fact, I have a meeting tonight. I'm on the board of Connecticut Against Gun Violence, and I can reach out to them. That there is no evidence that having armed school resource officers has ever protected a student in those situations. I could be wrong, but and I will find out, but my understanding is it is extremely unlikely that that is actually helpful in that situation. And I agree with you. I would do anything to keep kids safe from that kind of a situation. I just want to make sure it's evidence-based.
Hi, Barry Walters, co-chair. We're all have valid points here as far as keeping our children safe, and that includes all children. And, you know, once upon a time, a school resource officer was not somebody who was armed or was, you know, even necessarily a snitch. They were just that, a resource officer. To Dawn's point, yes, I agree with you and your assessment there that we need to protect our kids. Being a parent myself, I also know that our schools now are fairly locked down, and you know, everything but a retina scan at this point. And if an individual is going to get into our schools, they are most likely not going to be stopped by a armed person, you know, an armed resource officer, armed security guard. So my question is do we need them anymore? You know, we've instituted these other protections to try to prevent people from even accessing our schools to cause harm to our children. You know, and true, we have, you know, kids who are going to be outside at any given time, but there's no way to 100% protect them, I believe. And so I that is a question that I would ask is, do we really need them given the security features that we have spent a great deal of money to install on all of our schools over the last few years here in West Hartford? I don't, I have not gone to every school. I can say that based on the schools that my son has attended and those schools that I have been to, it's not easy to get into them anymore. So I would tend to lead towards we may have better protection than we did before without necessarily needing those armed security guards.
Hi, my name is Krishna Adhikari, member. I agree with Barry and also Don. The question is, how do we secure our kids? What are the purpose of those security officers with the arm in the schools? There should be some logic behind. Now, when we review those things and the officers should not have the armed weapons with him. If we need the security for the kids and just for the door checking or the stranger checking, there should be the person security guard without having any arms. And the second option, just withdrawing the police officer with arms might be a replacement. Without arms should be the protective for the school child. We can discuss these points with the school security, school principals, and other concerned agencies. Then we can make a decisions and recommendations.
Harry Walters, Krishna, you do raise a valid point that discussion is needed at the school level, and I know that Superintendent Tom Moore has been declaring that there will be a lot of changes and adaptations going on with policy as it relates to race and treatment of marginalized citizens. I don't know that I would want to wait until we have a final document because I'm not sure that has been established yet. I know that it's been moving towards that, and here recently, if I recall, he wanted to add to it just because of what has been going on, highlighting other needs that we may not necessarily have done. Sarah, I know that you've had a relationship with the superintendent in the past where you kind of have a direct line and able to speak with him. Perhaps more information about what he plans to do would be necessary, and perhaps even a conversation with him as well. And my fear, though, is that while we do need to collect information, while we do need to be fair and include people, I also don't want to talk. I want to move quicker than not. And I know that the wheels tend to grind slowly, anyways. But if we're able to have these conversations sooner than later, that would be my preference.
This is Sarah Raskin. Yeah, I think it's a great idea to reach out to Superintendent Moore as a commission and see if there's a way to have a conversation with him. I don't know that it needs to be a special meeting, but maybe just just a conversation between one or two of us and him, just to get some clarification so that we're not asking for things that he has very good reasons not to do or that he's already doing. I'm also cognizant that it's about 10 of, and I just wanted to check. I'm assuming we don't have any callers calling in with questions or comments, but I just wanted to leave a minute just in case that we did. Try to do it. Is there anybody?
Madam Chair, we do not have any callers.
This is Sarah Raskin. Thank you. Okay, so how do people feel about the notion of reaching out to Superintendent Moore and just finding out what the status of these various issues are.
My name is Krishna. I support. I agree with you. That's a great idea.
My name is Don Ennis, and I agree.
Hi, Adrian Billings Smith. I agree that we should reach out to Tom Moore, but I also think that we should take some sort of stance on what we would like to see in terms of even before we reach out to him. I would like to see what sort of our stance on the issue as a group, because we're in this together and we're doing this for the citizens of West Hartford and the students of West Hartford. So he may have great points, but we also have our own stance on this of what we're trying to do based off of what Don was saying. Maybe she doesn't believe that we should necessarily strip them, but if there's good enough reason, she may believe that we don't need them. Barry, like he said, we've come a long way with technology and other security efforts that what would be the use for them. So at this point, I think we still need to take some sort of stance on the issue before we contact Superintendent Moore, so he knows where we're coming from as the Human Rights Commission. So it's not, hey, what are you doing? Oh, okay, well, we'll back up. No, because if we have a stance on it, then he should know our stance, because that makes us stronger, and it makes us stronger within our community and the support, because then we can garner support for whatever our stance is.
100%. And even though this doesn't carry through on the phone, but I want to just click and say thank you, Adrienne. My experience with Tom Moore is that he doesn't answer emails. So if we could, I would recommend that we make sure we CC Deb Poland, who's his deputy. There's another woman also who's on the Board of Ed who we should include. I can't remember her name. All of a sudden, my brain just went out the window. But the more people that we CC on that email, the more likely we'll get a direct response.
This is Sarah Raskin. He actually has been responsive to me for whatever reason, but I'm very happy to include Lorna, Deb Poland, anybody that you think would be appropriate.
This is Don Ennis, Lauren. Yes, they just don't like me, that's all.
I'm a thorn. This is Sarah Raskin. Okay, so Adrian, do you want to propose a position for us to take?
Adrian Billings Smith here. I would like us to propose for the position of the elimination of armed officers in our schools. Not necessarily completely eliminating that position, but the elimination of armed officers within our school because of the technology and other security efforts we have taken within our community to ensure the safety of our children.
This is Sarah Raskin. Do we need to take a vote on this? Is there any, let me ask this, is there any dissension?
This is Krishna Adhikari. I agree with Adrian. The question is not removing everything else, not the recommendation of the completely removing the officers. The armed officer is not necessary at the schools. So there should be the second alternatives to secure the school, whether the technological development, something going to stranger into the school, something camera, or there's some locking systems, some other options, principals or the school authorities can develop or give us the second options, and then second stage they can remove all police officers, even not having the arms. That's my suggestions.
Barry Walters. I actually would like to propose that we include all bullet points A through J under D, schools, as outlined, be presented to Superintendent Moore. And in this particular case, I believe it's easier to cross things out than it will be to not have a position at all. So I would propose that we put it into a more formal letter And when we are able to speak with him, that we present it and go from there. Use it as a starting point.
This is Sarah Raskin. Barry, are you also including things under E, the large bullet point E?
Sorry, yes, I am.
This is Sarah Raskin. Is there any other discussion or comments that people would like to make?
Walters. Thank you, Sarah and Adrian, for working on this outline. It's about as thorough as we possibly can be without having a dissertation. And it is my hope that we are able to address all of the bullet points that are here. But understanding that we may have to do it as chunks at a time, which is fine. But again, I wanted to just say thank you for putting that together. And, you know, we have a task ahead of us with police reforms and schools as they're bullet pointed here. So I think we have a lot to do. And I hope that all of us can come together as a team and work together to make some change here with this.
Adrian Billing-Smith there. Thank you, Barry. And thank you for Sarah for putting this list together. I wanted to talk about your proposed for including A through J, and I just would like people, since this is a live and recorded thing, to know that A through J, B through J is dealing with implementing Black, Indigenous, people of color voices into our education. I think that's important that they know that's where our stance is, to make sure that things our children and students are being taught the truth in their history, and that we would like that within representation within our schools, educators, administrators, and guidance counselors. And that we would like to make sure that the district is fully aware that we believe in ethnic studies, Black history studies, and all those things. And that was B through J. I just wanted to make sure that's heard by everyone who might be listening or might listen later, that we are in the discussion. That's what we're going to the Board of Education and a superintendent more about. Thank you.
Hi, this is Pramod. I'm the liaison to the Human Rights Commission. I would like to thank each and every commissioners for working this out, and at the right moment, I think, which especially the school front and the school and the police. I would also like to add another dimension that at this time, when we're talking about the schools, we also consider the pandemic that we are facing right now. We don't know what kind of school scenarios we have once they open up. But I totally agree with the commissioners on taking out the armed police officers from the schools. When they were enlisted there, we didn't have those kind of technologies at place. So, but now since we have that, I totally agree on removing at least the armed security officers from the schools. But again, we also have to consider what the school will look like once they open up. with considering the current situation. But again, thank you to all the commissioners on working this out at the very right moment.
This is Sarah Raskin. Thank you all. I actually do need to go to another meeting. And so if somebody wants to move that we, second that we adjourn, I will write that down.
This is Don Ennis. I second that we adjourn. Move, second, whatever.
If she is making the motion, I will second the motion.
Excellent. So we are adjourned, and we will follow up with meetings with both the chief of police and the superintendent of schools.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you also. This is
Thank you.
Don saying thank you to Gina.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for helping us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
And Eureka.